I had a really good friend reach out to me asking if I could find him a good Honda mower. The cool part was that I already had this one sitting in my storage. Unfortunately, I don't remember a thing when it comes to how I got it, but I'm pretty sure I picked it up for free from my favorite online marketplace. The reason I know that is that I'm a real cheapskate and I would never pay for something unless I had to. In today's video, we look at this Honda mower, and the problem is that I don't know anything about it because I simply can't remember any of the details of how I got it. Now, since it's been in storage for quite some time, there's a really good chance that it's not going to start, so we'll have to diagnose it and see if it's even worth fixing. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, however, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. Now, we're only going to mention what these other options could be. We don't have enough time to look into them, but if you need more information on these options, you're welcome to ask as many questions as you need to. Now, I'm really tempted to just put some gasoline into this mower and try starting it, but I need to go through it first before I do, and that's because it may not have any oil in it, or it could possibly be broken. So it looks like there's absolutely no gasoline in the tank, which is great news, and that's because as gasoline ages, it has the potential to destroy everything it touches. The one thing I don't like seeing, though, is that the fuel valve has been left in the open position, and the reason is because during storage, it exposes the carb to gasoline from the tank, and with it being the last place for the gasoline to go, it could clog the tiny openings inside the carb, or even worse. After taking out the dipstick, it looks like there's plenty of oil inside the engine. However, this is a false reading. It's best if you wipe it clean first and then press the dipstick against the threads to read it. The reason I do it like this is because this is how the owner's manual tells you how to do it. The oil isn't full, but it's on the marked section of the dipstick, which means we have more than enough oil to safely run the engine. The next thing I want to check is the air filter to make sure that it's not covered in dirt, oil, or wet with fuel, otherwise air won't be able to pass through it and into the engine. Luckily, this one is in pretty good shape, so I'll be reusing it. While I'm here, I'm also going to check that the choke flap is in the closed position, which helps to start the engine when it's cold. Ours is closed just like it's supposed to be, so next I'll put some fuel into the carb's throat and try starting it. Luckily, it started and ran for a few seconds, which is great news. Now, if yours did not start, you may have an issue with the ignition system, or the engine might simply be worn out and doesn't make enough compression for it to even run. The next step I want to take is to inspect the carb, but only the bowl at first, because this will give me an idea if the carb is in working condition. Unfortunately, to make filming a little easier, I need to take it off the engine. Now, when putting this filter base back on, make sure you reconnect the emissions breather tube to this barb, otherwise the engine could breathe in unfiltered air and cause the engine to wear out prematurely. Now, while I have the carb off the engine, I'm going to look at the choke control assembly just in case you've never seen how it works. Now, this plate is sandwiched between the carb and the engine, and it works by moving the choke lever at the front of the carb. At the back of the assembly, you can see the part that makes contact with the thermostat. Now, the thermostat sits in the engine, and as it warms up, it moves to override the choke, which is not needed when the engine is warm. When taking off the bolts for the carb, not only can you remove the carb, but it also drops all of the gaskets, which is a real pain to put back on, but it's not impossible, as you'll see here later on. The next step I want to do is to take off the bowl nut. That way I can take off the bowl and inspect its condition. Now, if it's really bad, we might have to consider taking off the carb for a full cleaning. And surprisingly, the bowl is in excellent condition. In fact, it almost looks brand new. That means I'm not going to remove the carb, but I do want to make sure the float is still moving fine, which it is, and that the jet is clear. Now, to properly check the jet, I really should take it out, but since I feel like cutting a few corners today, I'm going to try a different method. What I'm going to do is insert this wire through the jet while it's still inside the carb. Now, I know you can't tell what I'm doing, but essentially I'm clearing a tiny opening without taking out the brass jet. Just make sure your wire is at least 1.5 inches long, and then make sure you can push all of it into the carb. If you're hitting something, you might be missing the opening, so try to put the wire right in the middle, and you should be able to clear the jet. Once I'm certain the jet is clear, I'm now going to put the carb back together and then attempt to put all the gaskets back on in the right order so I can stab the bolts through everything. Now, if I had a complaint about this engine, this would be it. However, I would gladly deal with this issue because I really think these are great engines as long as you follow the recommended oil changes. Now don't forget to reconnect the breather hose to the filter base, and then the hard part is lining everything up. Now take your time and inspect your work during and after the point you put the bolts on. A long time ago when I first started this hobby, I had one of the gaskets not line up, and the air leak at the gasket was so bad I was having a lot of issues getting the engine started until I realized what had happened. Once you see the bolts sticking past the gasket, carefully move everything into position and then start the bolts by hand. Once they've been started, take a peek under the carb and make sure that none of the gaskets are hanging down. If there is one hanging down, then you'll have to restab everything again. Now before I put this mower back on the ground, I want to address this wheel, and the reason is because it's kind of tough to spin. I'm not sure if this would clear up on its own once it's being used on a regular basis, but I do want to take a look at it to see if there's something I can take care of right now. The first thing I noticed is that the wavy washer is not where it's supposed to be. It should be right here. However, once I tried to remove the wheel bolt, I realized that it was on the other side of the wheel. I'm also having a hard time getting the bolt out, and it's due to the buildup that's on it. Once I've gotten the bolt out, I'll try to clean the buildup off and then lubricate it. While I'm here, I'm also going to lubricate the height adjusters, that way it'll be easier to use them. Don't forget to try and work them as well to help get the lube where it needs to go. After that, I'll then put some lube on the wheel bolt and then install the wheel back onto the mower. Also, don't forget to install the wavy washer on the inside of the wheel. Once the bolt is tight, I'll then check to see how much better the wheel spins in comparison to what it was like before, and the difference is absolutely amazing. If you've seen my videos before, you'll know what I have to do next. I'll have to set up something in the future to show you just how much easier it is to push a mower around the yard after lubrication, but I don't expect to have it ready until next year. Now the rear wheel is going to be a bit different, and the reason is, of course, it's not going to spin as freely as the front, but I'm mainly going to do it to lubricate the drive gear. Just be careful when taking off the wheel, because this one not only has a wavy washer, it also has a flat washer as well. As you can see, I dropped one of them in the grass while the other one is hanging on to the wheel cover. Now the drive gear looks to have been heavily lubed already, so I'm not going to take it off to lube it. Instead, I'm just going to spray lube around the gear and then try to work it into the keyway where the spring and key are located at. Now if I thought there was an issue with how the gear was spinning, I would then consider taking off the clip to properly lubricate it. This one is spinning just fine, so I'm just going to add more lube to it. Now applying lube to the wheel bolts isn't necessary, but I'm still going to do it anyway. The reason is that the rear wheels have bearings, which I'm also going to lube as well. After that, I'll then reinstall the wheel back onto the mower and check how much better it spins. Don't forget to put the wavy washer back on, followed by the flat washer. Now the difference isn't going to be as obvious, but doing this could help the self-propel work a lot better, so it's definitely worth doing. I'm also going to go under the mower and lubricate the axle bearings. Now to do this properly, I would have to take the entire drive system off the mower, which is a huge pain to do, so spraying what I can between the shaft and the bearing is the best I can do right now. While I have the mower standing up, I'm also going to take both blades off so I can sharpen them. This is something most people overlook, but doing this could keep your engine from stopping while cutting tall or even thick grass. If you can't sharpen them yourself, pay a few dollars to have someone do it for you. Otherwise, consider replacing them every 3 to 4 years. Now that most of the maintenance stuff has been done, I think it's time we put some fuel into the tank and try starting it. Now I plan on doing a fuel efficiency test right after I get done here, so I don't want to have to drain out a full tank. Instead, I'll just pour in about 4 ounces so I get it to run for several minutes. Now since I've never had fuel in this car before, I need to check and see if it's going to leak. But after several minutes, I don't see a drop under the airbox, so I think we're ready for a test start. Now, right after I started the engine, it over-revved briefly, and that's because the throttle plate was stuck in the open position, but it freed itself, which is a good thing, and it's something I should have checked before starting it. Now, when stopping my Hondas, I don't like leaving fuel in the carb, so I typically turn the fuel valve off and let the carb run out of gasoline. What that does is that it isolates the carb from the rest of the fuel system, and if it does go bad, it won't affect the carb. I will say that just lubricating the wheels makes a huge difference when it comes to using this mower. It was kind of a hassle to move before, but now I don't even mind if I don't use the self-propel for at least a few minutes. Now, since I'm doing a fuel test later on, I might as well change the oil now. That way it'll be on an even keel with the rest of the other mowers. Now, changing the oil is very simple to do. Just tip the mower on its side and let all the oil drain out, and then put the correct amount back in. I don't measure out my oil. I simply add several ounces at a time and check it frequently so I do not overfill it. If you do, simply tip the mower on its side and pour out just a few ounces. So in the end, I have a feeling that this mower was in working condition to begin with, and that I kind of wasted my time inspecting the carb, but it was a lot safer to do it the way that I did it. At least that's the way I'm going to justify all the work I did to it. Now, the other work we did to it, like servicing the wheels, sharpening the blade, and also doing a well-needed oil change, will all help to ensure not only that it's going to last for another year, but it's also going to work well in the next season. So my question is, why would someone give away a mower that runs but just needed some light maintenance work? Now, it's not unheard of, but it seems like a waste to just give it away versus keeping it as a backup mower instead. Personally, if I had to guess, I think they may have gone battery electric, and if they did, good for them, because now I've got their Honda mower. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.